I can't stand it. These stories where these parents take their children's social security number and get things in their names, get bills in their names, take out credit in the names of the children to the point where their children have to dig themselves out of a hole that their parents created before they were even legal. This actually made it to Fortune. So, parents are stealing their children's identities to access debt and destroying their kids' credit scores in the process. This made it to Fortune. We need to talk about it because what these parents are doing is financial abuse. When Axton Betts Hamilton set up her first utility bill in college, she realized something was very, very wrong. It turned out she'd been a victim of identity theft and it had destroyed her credit rating. In 2001, when she was a 19-year-old student, Betts Hamilton's new utility provider demanded a $100 security deposit to turn on her service, citing her credit score. I thought it was because I didn't have enough credit, she told Fortune. But when a copy of her credit report turned up in her mailbox 6 weeks later, she learned the opposite was true. At first, I thought credit reports must come with a lot of instructions because my credit report should not have been thick. It should have been half a page, name, address, and a couple of student loans. I opened it and realized very quickly that credit reports do not come with a lot of instructions, but that mine was 10 pages long and full of fraudulent credit card entries. Some of those entries dated back to 1993 when she was 11. When she disputed the file with the credit bureaus, parts were removed simply because certain creditors had gone out of business. Others, however, didn't get scrubbed from her history until they aged off, which typically takes around 7 years. For most people, the idea of identity theft conjures images of anonymous, shady hackers, but for many victims, including Betts Hamilton, the perpetrator is much closer to home. In Betts Hamilton's case, it was her mother. Betts Hamilton fell victim to child identity theft in the 90s, but the crime is still widespread today. A landmark 2011 study by Carnegie Mellon Scilab found that children are uniquely vulnerable to identity theft. In their analysis of more than 40,000 American children, researchers at the university found that 10% had someone else using their social security number. That meant that kids were 51 times more likely to fall victim to identity theft than adults. Children's identities were being used to buy homes and cars, open credit card accounts, and secure employment. The report's authors said with the youngest victim they discovered in their analysis being just 5 months old. Meanwhile, a 2021 study by Javelin Strategy found that 1 in 50 U.S. children have fallen victim to identity theft every year, with 73% of victims being targeted by someone they know personally. Harvey Richvendran, I'm sorry, y'all know I can't read all these names, CEO and founder of digital security firm Aura, told Fortune that the perpetrator in a child identity theft case is very often related to the victim. A lot of the time, it involves families that are in dire straits, where they're facing something like a serious economic crunch or addiction issues. When children are born, they get a social security number that generally never gets used until they are about 17 or 18. So there's this large window of time where there's a clean social security number available. It was only after her mother passed away in 2013 that Betts Hamilton finally realized who was behind the fraud that landed her in a financial difficulty. A couple of weeks after her mom's death, she got a life changing call from her dad. He was going through my mom's old things and pulled out a credit card statement in my name. He was ready to tear into me. He was yelling at me for taking a credit card over its limit back in 2001. As the conversation progressed, Betts Hamilton realized that the credit card in question was one of the debts that had been fraudulently taken out in her name. Further discoveries made among her mom's files proved her mom had been the perpetrator of all of it and revealed that she was not only guilty of her daughter's identity theft, but of fraud committed in Betts Hamilton's dad's and grandfather's names. That moment of discovery, it was like experiencing two extreme emotions. As someone who's been living with identity theft for 20 years and not knowing who was responsible, it was like, wow, we figured out who did it and we don't have to live like this anymore. But it's like, mom, really? It's mom? The fraud her mom had committed dragged Bets Hamilton's credit score down to 380 before she'd even had a chance to build any credit for herself. In the US, FICO scores, the most commonly used credit scores, sit between 300 and 850, with a rating of 700 or above generally deemed to be good by lenders. According to Experian, the average American had a FICO score of 714 last year. Credit scores are used by lenders to determine whether someone is likely to pay them back and are therefore hugely significant when it comes to taking out debt like loans and credit cards. Even landlords sometimes ask to see potential tenants' credit scores before agreeing to rent them an apartment. And having a poor rating, one that is around 700, could make things difficult for a would be renter. Beth Hamilton's damage credit report landed her in the second percentile of all credit scores back in 2001. It took her a lot of time and money to remedy the situation. She says, I started getting a credit card from a subprime lender that had an exorbitant interest rate and it had a $300 limit. My first car loan on a 5-year-old car had an APR of 18.23%. That's like putting a used car on a credit card. By the time her mom passed away, Beth Hamilton's credit report had been cleared of fraudulent entries, but she said her mother had absolutely been aware of just how financially damaging the identity theft had been. I'm the one who told her how bad it was. She was the first person I called for help because she worked in the financial services and was the financial expert in the family. Y'all, imagine the betrayal of finding this and having no remedy because the perpetrator had passed away. This has to hit somebody really hard in the emotions. Wayne R. Cohen, founder and managing partner of Washington, D.C. based firm Cohen and Cohen, told Fortune the chief motivation behind the crime was when a parent has bad credit and is not able to make a debt-based purchase. In most states, this is a crime. Fraud, identity theft, and misappropriation of funds are all possible charges a prosecutor could bring. When it comes to what motivated Beth Hamilton's mom to commit her crimes, Beth Hamilton can never know for sure, as she never got a chance to confront her. But through conversations with people who knew her mom and her own reflections, she has a few ideas. My grandmother was very similar, apparently, to my mom, in that she would compulsively spend. That spending came down to a need to have the nicest things and impress other people with their perception of your wealth based on the kind of clothes you have and the car you drive. You trust your parents. A number of people who were victimized by their parents have shared their stories on social media. First credit report I pulled at 18 had a gas bill from 1999. I was born in 89. One person said on a post on Twitter, was very thankful they allowed me to dispute it simply by using my birth certificate instead of doing a police report against my own family. But that was probably because I was trying to get a security clearance and the powers that be rushed things. Parents have really got to stop putting things in their kids' names. This is completely unfair. My mom did this whole adult life. I've been paying off debt that wasn't even mine, another person said, while another said it had taken her until her 30s to stabilize her credit score after her parents used her details. This makes me so mad. Parents are supposed to be here to support your children and set them up for the best possible life once they get out and are adults of their own. But this is so egregious to me. I cannot even fathom harming my children like that just to send that out into the world. You guys go ahead, drop your comments. Let me know if you've experienced this. Don't forget to like, comment, share.